YouTube, what's going on? It's your boy Buddha back in the building for another Last Cloudia video, one that I'm excited to talk about. And that is, as you can see in the title of this video, 5 quality of life changes that I feel need to happen to increase this game's player retention and kind of bring the game up to the times in a sort of sense. So as we know, Last Cloudia in the last 6 months, 7 months has made massive strides in improving the game from the destitute state that it was when I first jumped in. That was kind of like the first steps toward some really needed changes in the game. And that is so refreshing, so I don't want to knock them, right? They've been doing so good. I think they've increased their player base. They've treated us generally pretty well, but there are certain things that I think have been refreshed in everyone's mind, things that have caused a lot of players to quit and just continue to be a barricade for the growth of the game and player retention in general. So just to start it off, we're going to go kind of with the lower priority changes I want to make, and then I'll finish off with the big ones. But the first one I want to talk about is a streamlined clear screen. You can see I'm doing some auto clears as I'm talking, and let's just see how many clear screens. We've got 1 after we finish the stage, then we've got 2, then we've got a 3rd, all in the while cycling through this auto clear process. Now imagine how much faster, and I would imagine how many less communication errors there would be if it was just one clear screen at the end with all of the clear details, and then you can move on and get to the next stage. I think that would make a lot of people happy. It makes things faster. It's something I've seen the community ask for, and even when I did my poll for what people were most excited for, I put for the options Steam PC. The other one was new regions in the world being able to access the game, and the third one was quality of life updates, which surprisingly, the quality of life updates out of 500 people got the most upvotes. It was like over 50%. One of those options that I put in parentheses with the quality of life was a faster clear screens after you finish the stage. So Itis knows. A ton of people have said it already. They kind of had a weird excuse that didn't make too much sense, at least to me, when someone brought it up in one of the Q&As, something about anti-cheat features. But who cares about anti-cheat features if no one's playing the game? The next QOL update that I would like to see, and something I actually saw being talked about very recently on my Discord, are loadout presets. Oh, I think some of the veterans don't mind it. It's become somewhat of a pride thing that they know where the skills are and they can swap out their builds really fast because they have it all memorized in their head, and that's great and dandy. And I've definitely felt accomplished when I do the same thing. When I'm going into a certain fight, I know exactly what I need to do. I swap it out real quick. I'm like, oh yeah, I know my shit. But I'm trying to take a step back and look at the overall health of the game and the need... The inability to just make a preset, save it for future uses, especially when you have a library of skills that you then have to sort through and swap in and out. Even weapons, I'd say, that you gotta then swap through in and out. It's going to turn the majority of players off because it's just a time waster, versus if I knew I had a build that I was going to use, let's say in multiplayer on Purple Gate every single time, I could set that build and then have it ready to go as soon as I wanted to make a switch. I think that would save so many players headaches. It would make people want to take on different challenges, want to use different builds, because just going in and swapping out skills and weapons every single time you change battles, it's not fun. It's at the end of the day, it's just waste time. So I totally am a fan of the idea of loadout presets for this game. The third QOL update I would like to see involves equipment, which we've kind of seen them push equipment revamps with things like the Godforge alchemy already, but I wanted to even further talk about things that I think are extremely necessary regarding equips. The first one and biggest one for me is to put some accessories in the equipment enhancement tab. Why has this been empty for, oh, I don't know, 2 years? Like, it just is a terrible look in the game. Even if it's not super relevant, I mean, they've offered accessories that are enhanceable via the limited tab when events roll around, like we see with this one right here. Well, actually, no, that's a cloth armor, so that's not a good example. But we have had accessories enhanceable via this tab in the past. But why, for the love of God, why is this even in the game? If they never planned or on putting accessories, or it was never going to be a main priority for them, why not just hold off on the accessories tab up there until they were ready to roll out something like that? The fact that this has been empty for 2 years is insane to me. If I'm wrong on that, and at one point in time there were accessories in here, please correct me, but to only have ever weapons and armor available for enhancement and then just have this empty tab that has never been touched, I don't even want to think about the amount of cobwebs that are in this freaking library of code. Like, for the love of LC, put some accessories in here for us. And that kind of ties into something else people talk about. People want Crimson Ore weapons to be enhanceable. I totally support that. But on top of that, can we get some more equipment in the trade shop? For the longest, we've only ever had the Scarlet Ring, the Scarlet Rod, and the Scarlet Blade. What about the other plethora of weapons that are in the game? Or maybe a Crimson Armor piece that does something cool, like increase HP cap. That sounds cool to me. Like, I like the theme of increasing damage cap or increasing caps with these types of equipment, especially since you get them by getting duplicates, which incentivizes you to pull on the gacha more. Why not give us more weapons that are super OP by doing that? Sounds good to me. Something you can get off of free-to-play summons and paid summons alike, because it's just duplicates of arcs. Those are things that you're going to get over time, no matter what your pace of spending crystals is. But this is something that I also think is desperately needed. Why not just do another huge equipment revamp update? Give us enhanceable accessories. Give us Crimson Ore Shop enhanceable equipment. And on top of that, give us more Crimson Ore Shop stuff. I think that would be a huge bonus for the game. That was also something that I think was in my little options of QOL updates when I did my poll. So people want it, people want to see it, and I think it would be great for the game. Barleen did mention that they are planning on this. It's definitely on the table of discussion. It's been on their table of discussion to introduce more Crimson Ore equipment, but he didn't really give any type of timeline for it when we'd be seeing it in game. It still sounded like it was a very early in development and in discussion, so we're just gonna have to wait and see if it comes to fruition, but it's definitely something I wanted to point out in this video. And now these last two updates, getting into the fourth QOL update. These are going to be the two, I'd say, most critical changes that they could make for game growth and game player retention. This first one is going to be, I think, a hot topic because last Cloudia, a lot of people hate the gacha structure, and that's what we're going to be talking about. I think that they need to do a revamp. They need to change their gacha system if they want to stay relevant in today's gacha market. Is last Cloudia's gacha system the worst out of any gacha system? No. Is it the best? Absolutely not. It falls somewhere in the middle. It's going to frustrate most people. Some people have come to terms with it and they're fine with it. But here's my argument. The gacha games that are coming out nowadays are very generous. There are huge public campaigns against certain gacha games nowadays when they pull stunts that Last Cloudia is actively doing. It's just that it doesn't have as many eyes. But games like My Hero Academia, Disgaea RPG have just gone from very hyped titles to the freaking gutter because of some of these gacha decisions that they've made. And I'll tell you, the decision to not include Alice as a free-to-play pitiable unit is one of those decisions that reflects so poorly on this game. There needs to be consistency with how they structure their gachas, because players like to know what to expect so they can plan around their savings and their target goals, especially when you have a pity system that requires such a huge amount of free-to-play crystals. 90,000 is a ton, especially if you look at the amount that crystals cost when you look at the dollar conversion to crystal purchase. 90k is 30 multi-spins for pity, and you're telling me that you're going to sometimes just take away the option to spend that 90k if you worked hard to save up? Let's say you are a huge Alice simp, you love the design for whatever reason, and you save up 90k, this is the character you want, and you can't even pity it out of left field because you expected to be able to, since that's usually what Idis does, but not in this case. They did an extremely similar shady move during the 2nd year anniversary when you couldn't pity the shift forms for all of the rerun main cast banners. Something that could get people heated, and it does every day once they start talking about this system. Like, one, be consistent with your pity system. Be consistent with what people can expect off of these different new banners that are released. And since we're talking about pity, I can kind of transition into my next topic. We need a streamlined pity system. That is literally one of the killers in this game. Whether you think it's fair or not, whether you think it's justifiable or not, my argument is that the biggest gachas that we've seen to this day all come with a streamlined pity system because it is a selling point to someone. One pity currency for a gacha structure is something that will keep a player around even after they get shafted to all hell. The fact that these banners continue to be pity medal exclusive to that banner, and then once the next banner rolls around, you lose all those pity medals, it's such an ass structure. It sucks so bad. It feels so bad to think about. And like I said, especially with today's gacha market expectations, you got games like Genshin Impact, 7 Deadly Sins. Have a consistent pity currency that you accumulate no matter when you summon, and you know eventually over time you'll be able to get something that you actually want on demand. You don't have to only rely on luck or a paid pity like this game offers. Even if you haven't gotten all of the crystals you can from story, from events, from leveling up your arcs, other things like that, a streamlined pity currency is just a selling point. It's something that will keep the player around even after they get shafted, because they know that their summons actually went towards something to benefit themselves, rather than just flushing them down the toilet, never to be seen again. It's a perception of value that's going to retain players. I can talk this topic into circles to death, so I think I've explained enough where I'm coming from in that point. And I think I want to leave it off with, like, get the whole paid currency and free-to-play currency out of here. Paid crystals and free-to-play crystals being a different thing. The fact that there are two different banners is ludicrous. I remember when I first downloaded this game, that was a huge and immediate turnoff. Now, I am still here, so it doesn't really help my argument that it's not going to help with player retention, but I think from a macro stance, this is so outdated. Funny enough, I think Near Reincarnation actually has a paid currency only banner, which you can find a lot of examples, I think, that disprove my point, but I am very confident saying that the move to changing just paid gems, having paid gems and free gems being two different things, I think hurts them in a macro stance. Is this something that I'm making claims off based off of data? No, these are just gut feelings I have. I'm not a marketing expert. It's just my opinion. Something that definitely turned me off as soon as I downloaded the game. But again, like I said, it's my opinion. Take it as you will. And finally, we reached the last point that I want to bring up in terms of quality of life. And like I said, all of the updates I talked about earlier in the video, I think will help the game immensely, but I don't think they are needed like this last point, along with the Gacha rework. This point right here is what I think kills the game for most players immediately after they download, and that is device optimization. If you didn't know, this game is really only designed to function well on iOS devices, and not only that, but strong iOS devices, things like iPads, or like my phone, the iPhone 12 is where I've had the least amount of issues. Even when I had the iPhone X or the iPhone 10, I noticed a lot of lag where there really shouldn't be in a pixel game. We have games, fully rendered 3D models with crazy combat simulation. Yes, I'm thinking about Nier Reincarnation, with hardly any communication errors, with beautiful graphics that don't really lag like that if you've got your settings, fitted for whichever device you're running. But Last Cloudia as a pixel game struggles, I'd say, for 80%. Again, I'm making up statistics in my mind, just thinking about what I see online. But for a ton of players, this game lags to all hell. It works like ass on Android devices, which is why on emulators it is terrible, and you run into so many communication errors, or just the frickin' game freezing altogether when you're trying to auto farm. That's going to be one of the #1 turnoffs for this game for any new player trying to pick it up. Not everyone can afford the best of the best devices or strong Apple devices. Let's say even if you have a super powerful Android device, this game is going to lag for you in areas where it really shouldn't, and that is going to kill the player retention, because there are so many games out there that, yes, they have a bigger budget, but they look better. No one cares. The consumer doesn't care if this game or that game has the bigger budget. We can use that as an excuse to justify, give them a little bit of slack. But at the end of the day, this game needs to stop what it's doing and go a couple steps backward to the coding of the game and why these performance issues are such a problem, and they really need to hammer out those details. I know we're getting this Steam PC release at some point, which we can all cross our fingers for. Hopefully they are killing it with an optimized Steam version. I don't know how the Taiwan version performs. I think the emulated version over in JP does pretty well, but I don't know how the PC client for Taiwan performed on Steam. So maybe some of you guys can enlighten me on that, if that was pretty decent. But that's kind of our one chance at having a stable and very consistent client for Last Cloudia that's going to be able to auto farm well, probably have a lot less communication errors if you have your device hooked up via an Ethernet to your internet. But that's not going to be a fix for the mobile versions. There needs to be a fix in device optimization for the mobile versions as well, I think, just to keep the game afloat long term. Something, just talking about lag, that I've mentioned before that I think needs to happen and I think could save the game in so many ways, is if they just made a damn feature to toggle off the damage numbers on the screen. I think many of us can use common sense to realize that having 100 hit damage numbers flying all over the screen like crazy how they do, while it's appealing to look at, it's not appealing when it's causing your game to have 3 frames per second. So just the ability to turn it off, I think, would save so many players from having the lag fest headache that this game can come with. And it sounds like an easy fix. It doesn't. I don't think there's a lot of coding that needs to be involved just to turn damage numbers off. That's also something that Barley mentioned in the Q&A, that they were considering that exact feature, mainly because it would help with multiplayer and those connection issues there. But I think for the game overall, not even including online, right, multiplayer gameplay, just overall, I would definitely take off the damage numbers if I could. In areas that I know what kind of damage I'm hitting, and then if it's going to increase my device performance, even better. So that's my one little simple fix to help with that area of device optimization, but I'm sure that it is a lot more complicated than that. I mean, in order to go back and change the entire back end of the game, who knows what kind of issues that would bring, because as we saw with the latest random midday update that we got for Last Cloudia Global, I don't know about anyone else, but in my Discord and talking to other people, and myself included, I have been noticing a ton more errors, communication errors, and issues with the game ever since they did that random update that came out of nowhere. So it's kind of scary to think about what would happen if they tried to rework the entire back end of the game to optimize this for Androids and whatever else they need to do, but I'd rather they give it some effort rather than keep the game in the state that it is. It might make it a little worse, but that might be steps to making it better. You know, I'm being optimistic here, but okay. I'm looking at my notes. I think that's all that I've got for this video. We've been recording for a minute. I'm going to chop up and edit this to make it concise and hopefully not ramble and rant too much so that my point gets lost. But what do you guys think? This is going to be a pretty hot video in regards to people's opinions, which I should disclaim again. This is all my opinion. Do I have exact knowledge of how back-end coding for these games works? No. Am I a marketing expert that's looking at, marketing data and what their revenue streams look like based on their campaigns and whatever? No. Just opinions based off of community responses, my own feelings towards certain things that they do that I would appreciate if they changed, and I really strongly believe it would benefit the game overall, which I think is what we all want, so that the game stays healthy, it stays alive, brings in new players, and just keeps the ball rolling. I know that's what I'd like, because then we got more people looking up videos on YouTube. And I can keep enjoying the game and pumping out content for you guys. So that's all I got for you this time. I'm excited to see y'all's response. Like and subscribe. Hit that bell notification if you'd like to know when I post immediately. And like I always say, work hard, play harder. See you in the next video.